Okay, in this video, we're going to be having a chat about Tom Appleby, Convict Boy. So this is a book that is normally done within sort of the year 4 to year 5 or 6, possibly even year 7 age group. It is a pretty challenging text because it is written from the perspective of someone in the sort of 18th and 19th century. So yeah, some of the language can be a little bit tricky, but it gives a really good representation of what life was like, not only in London, England during the Industrial Revolution, but also what it was like coming out to Australia in the First Fleet. So it is written from the perspective of a young boy, Tom, or Thomas, who lost both his parents quite tragically early on in the actual, well, actually his mother had already passed away before the book, and then we sort of see what happened to his father, which is quite sad early on. And then of course he becomes an orphan and a chimney sweep, and you know, things definitely don't end up where you would expect from where he started. But yeah, some really interesting things happen along the way. So we're going to actually do a focus here on chapter 7 in this video. The reason I'm focusing on this particular chapter is it just gives us a really good insight into what London was like during the Industrial Revolution, particularly for a young boy who was a chimney sweep. So chimney sweeps were, that was not really a profession, but I guess it was. It was a job done by a young child. It had to be somebody who was a child because they could fit into those nooks and crannies in the chimneys. So the chimney system in London was very complex back then. And they used to get very, very dirty, and they got clogged up with lots of gunk and stuff that, you know, smoke and things that you're cooking and fats and things. So people needed to go in and actually clean them out. And the people that did that were these little boys. And once they actually got too big to do it, they could no longer do it. And a lot of them actually died while they were doing this particular role. And we see that as well. It's pretty sad to sort of see what they have to go through. So when we look at the description here, we get this really vivid insight into what London was like during this period in time. So it was almost night outside, not the daylight Tom had expected. Chimney sweeps in London often worked at night when the house owners were asleep and the fires extinguished. So yeah, they're just like never seeing the light of day. Basically, these boys are just going up and down these chimneys, trying to clean them out during during the late hours or the nighttime hours. He had been too tired to notice much before. Now the horror of London struck him like a blow. So really powerful simile there to show how horrifying, and disgusting and just, yeah, really shocking London was. And here's why. The high wooden tenements that looked like a gust of wind would knock them down. The thick flies on piles of human excrement, so very like pungent image of human feces or poo there. The pigeons scrabbling in the horse dung in the cobbles in the last of the light, and all around the gabble, the street cries and the stench. So yeah, some pretty like pungent, disgusting images there, horrifying images. "Don't stand there gawping, boy," said Master Jack. It was a long walk. No one spoke unless you counted Bill's wet coughs or the gulping as Master Jack swigged from the bottle in his pocket. Tom felt the filth of the street ooze cold between his toes. He couldn't stand this. He couldn't. So like illness was something that, these chimney sweeps suffered from, and a lot of people in London actually. But of course, as a child, you got, restricted lung capacity, and, they're breathing and all this stuff, so, like lots of coughing and just the ooze, the dirt, between his toes. He's not wearing shoes, it's cold, but he had to. Tom shut his eyes for a second and felt the courage cloak wrap around him again. He opened his eyes and walked on. So earlier on in the book, we get this metaphor that's created for the courage that Tom needs to have to get through all these difficult experiences he's going through as an 8-year-old. And they create this as what we call a motif. So where the cloak becomes something that protects him, you know. So every time he's really scared or he's having a really challenging time, he puts that cloak, imagines that cloak on him, and, you know, he gets himself through it. The streets were narrow and made narrower still by food stalls selling chestnuts and hot potatoes. The smell made Tom's head swim with hunger. Sprawled dunks, or were they dead or sleeping, their bottles of gin still clasped in their hands? Don't even know. Women with thin faces and ragged shawls and a look of desperate invitation to any man that passed. The houses loomed above them, so it was only possible to see the smallest stench of smoky sky between them. It was a world of shadows, black clothes, brown cobbles, shadows, and the ever-present coal fog, thick in some streets, thin in others, but always choking at your lungs, as though London grudged you every breath you took. So some of the things to think about there, you know, have a look at why they're using that image of the shadows, the black, the brown, the shadows again, the coal, the fog, thick, choking, you know. Have a think about those words and what sort of images those create. You sort of really, you know, you can kind of imagine, like, you know, not feel it, but like, you know, you can imagine you're getting this really vivid picture of what that was like, you know, the pollution of it, the oppressive nature of it. So as you actually keep reading through, like, keep those points in mind that I've already highlighted, and see where else you can find like some of those things to do with, you know, like darkness and difficulty and oppression and what's it when you can't, you know, you can't breathe, like suffocation, if anything. So yeah, that's the best way to kind of go through this chapter. So I've given you a couple of pointers there. And then in terms of actually, you know, either like thinking for yourself about questions or maybe asking your children or your students about questions for this particular chapter, you know, I'd ask sort of questions about what sort of image is Jackie French creating about London? How do we know this? What sort of images can we see that illustrate that sense of oppression or the suffocation or the horrors of London? So even picking up on, you know, particular quotes, like when we go here, you could pick a quote and you could go, how does Jackie French represent the horror of London? You know, you could even pick up this whole quote, the horror of London struck him like a blow. I go, what language technique is this? We can get a simile there. Okay, what does a simile do? A simile is a comparison, where the horror of London struck him like a blow. So the horrors of being compared to a blow. And so you think about what a blow is. A blow is a punch. It's a hit. It's something violent, you know. And so that's then what we get. The image we get of London is that it's violent. It's a shocking thing. It's, you know, very difficult to live through. That's so getting like, yeah, you can, when you isolate these particular quotes, you can get like a real rich understanding of, you know, what it was like. And then of course, you know, students can then apply that with other examples, other similes, other images, you know, on their own.